In 1816, summer never came. Snow fell in June. Frost killed crops in July. Rivers froze in August. Across Europe and North America, people woke up to something that felt impossible. The sun rose, but it did not warm the earth. Farmers watched fields turn black overnight. Corn withered. Wheat failed. Livestock starved. In some towns, it snowed in the middle of what should have been harvest season. People whispered that God was angry. Some believed the end of the world had begun. This was called the Year Without a Summer. But the cause was not divine. It was volcanic. On April 10, 1815, on a small island in Indonesia, a mountain exploded. Mount Tambora erupted with a force so violent it remains one of the most powerful volcanic events in recorded history. The explosion was heard more than 1,000 miles away. The eruption column shot nearly 30 miles into the sky. Ash darkened the horizon. Entire villages were buried. An estimated 70,000 people would eventually die from the immediate blast, starvation, and disease that followed. But Tambora's reach did not stop at Indonesia. It reached the entire planet. The eruption blasted massive amounts of ash and sulfur dioxide into the stratosphere. And when particles enter that high into the atmosphere, they do not fall quickly. They spread around the globe. These particles reflected sunlight back into space. Temperatures dropped worldwide. On average, the planet cooled by nearly 1 degree Celsius. That may not sound like much, but it was enough to tip fragile agricultural systems into collapse. By 1816, the sky had changed. In Europe, a strange haze filtered the sunlight. Sunsets glowed red and orange in unnatural shades. Painters would later capture these vivid skies on canvas. In New England, frost struck in every summer month: June, July, August. Farmers replanted crops repeatedly. Each time, they failed. In Vermont, snow fell on June 6th. In parts of Canada, ice formed on lakes in August. Across Ireland, relentless rain destroyed potato crops. Grain prices soared. Food riots erupted in parts of Europe. In Switzerland, desperate families slaughtered livestock they could no longer feed. In Germany, starving peasants wandered roads in search of work or bread. This was not a localized disaster. It was global. And most people had no idea why it was happening. There were no weather satellites, no climate science, no understanding of atmospheric chemistry. To them, the seasons had broken. Religious explanations spread quickly. Some pastors declared it punishment. Others warned of apocalypse. And when hunger spreads, fear follows. In parts of Europe, theft increased, migration surged, crime rose. When crops fail, societies strain. But while farmers suffered, something else was happening. In the summer of 1816, a group of writers gathered at a villa near Lake Geneva in Switzerland. The weather was cold, unseasonably cold. They were trapped indoors by relentless rain and gray skies. Among them was a young woman named Mary Godwin, later known as Mary Shelley. The group entertained themselves by telling ghost stories. One night, after a discussion about life, electricity, and reanimation, Mary had an idea. A scientist who creates life from dead tissue, a creature rejected by its maker. A story born from darkness. That novel became Frankenstein, one of the most enduring works of Gothic fiction in history. A tale shaped by cold skies and a sun that would not shine. The Year Without a Summer did not just influence agriculture. It influenced art, literature, migration, technology. In North America, failed crops pushed many families westward. Some historians argue the climate disaster accelerated expansion into the American Midwest. In Europe, food shortages contributed to economic instability. In some regions, it deepened resentment against governments already strained after the Napoleonic Wars. And while the suffering was widespread, it was uneven. The wealthy could afford imported grain. The poor could not. Starvation does not strike evenly. It strikes where systems are weakest. Meanwhile, the sky remains strange. Reports describe a persistent dry fog,
sunlight dim and pale, red sunsets lingering long after dusk. In China, monsoon patterns shifted, floods devastated rice crops. In India, famine conditions worsened. The ripple effects were planetary, all from a mountain most Europeans had never heard of, Mount Tambora. Its explosion reduced the mountain's height by nearly 4,000 feet, an entire summit erased. Yet the people suffering in New England, Ireland, and Switzerland did not know its name. They only knew their fields were dying. Horses weakened from lack of feed. In response, a German inventor named Karl Dreis created something new, a two-wheeled device propelled by feet, an early precursor to the bicycle. With horses too expensive to maintain, alternatives became necessary.
Even transportation evolved in response to volcanic ash. This is how interconnected the world already was in 1816. A mountain in Indonesia reshaped daily life in Massachusetts, altered migration in Europe, inspired Gothic literature in Switzerland, and pushed technological innovation in Germany. Climate does not respect borders. It does not ask permission. It shifts, and societies adapt or suffer. By 1817, temperatures gradually began to recover. The particles in the atmosphere slowly settled. The sun regained its strength. Harvests improved, but the scars remained. Families who lost farms did not always return. Communities weakened by famine did not immediately rebuild, and memory of that strange cold year lingered. Newspapers had called it 1800 and froze to death, a grim joke masking real suffering. The year without a summer reminds us of something uncomfortable. Civilization depends on stability, stable temperatures, predictable seasons, reliable harvests. When that stability falters, even slightly, systems tremble. A 1-degree drop, that is all it took. Today, we understand volcanic winters. We track atmospheric particles. We model climate systems. But in 1816, people only felt confusion, fear, hunger, and a sun that would not warm them. There is something haunting about that image, a bright sky, but no heat, light without comfort. And yet, from that darkness came art, migration, innovation, and new understanding. History often focuses on wars and leaders, but sometimes the most powerful forces are natural, invisible particles drifting high above, changing everything below. The year without a summer was not just a weather anomaly. It was a reminder that humanity, for all its progress, remains tied to the atmosphere, to the sun, to forces far beyond any government. In 1816, people looked at the sky and saw something wrong. They did not know why. They only knew that summer had vanished, and when summer disappears, so does certainty.
Is stranger than you think. From forgotten battles to bizarre inventions, we uncover the stories that make you say, "What the history?"